Now, there's many ways to do a key exchange. We can do this privately. We can do this. Uh, uh, we can meet in advance. But the problem is, what? How do we share these keys if we have no way of knowing? If someone posts Bob's public key on the internet, can I trust them? Is that really Bob's public key? The only way I can know for sure is by meeting up with Bob, right? And saying, Bob, can I have your public key? That's the only way I really know that that's Bob's public key in my name. Unless we can get a certified third party in the mix, right? Let's say I trust Joe. I'm going to put Joe up here. And Joe's great. Joe is always, I trust Joe. Joe happens to know Bob. Bob gives the key to Joe. Joe gives the public key to me. Ah, I believe that. I trust that. Pat's the same way. I need Pat's public key. If I'm Bob, I can trust Joe to give me that public key. Maybe Pat and I are 3-4 states apart, right? Unable to meet up and do this. So that's why we need a trusted third party. Some party that both Pat and Bob trust to distribute the initial public keys to say, really, this is Bob's key. And really, this is Pat's key. Because without that confirmation, we have no idea whose key we're using really to encrypt data. We could be using a rogue user's public key who then can read our data once we send it. So this is an important part of the process. When we go back to digital signatures, it was all based on what? It was all based, the whole exchange, on those public keys. Being able to say that, yeah, that digital signature, I have Pat's public key, so I can make a digital signature. If we don't have that trust and confirmed, we cannot say with 100% certainty that we're sending this message encrypted so that no one can read it. So that's why this trusted party comes into play. And in our scenario, we're using Joe. Now, what happens is Joe tells us, okay, Pat, this is Bob's public key, and I certify that. Bob, this is Pat's public key, and I certify that. So we know for sure that Pat's public key is Pat's public key, and Bob's public key is Bob's public key because Joe has certified that. Now that we have confidence that those are those keys, we can actually go through the process we talked about. We can use our private key to do the encryption. We can use our private key for our signature, and we can use Bob's public key for the encryption. And like we said earlier, once the encrypted result goes over, we can use Pat's public key to verify the signature, and then Bob's private key in order to deal with the encryption. So this trusted third party is very, very important. Now, how does the trusted third party do this? Well, the trusted third party, first off, takes the key, takes that key, and it adds some things to it. First off, it puts the name. So it'll be Bob or Pat. It adds that to the key. Then it adds the duration that this key is good for. How long is this good for? Will be added in there. And last but not least is a hash based on the private key of the authority itself, this trusted third party. So Joe's hash will be involved there too. We will be able to have readability of the public keys then because we trust Joe. So that's how this process works. Joe, the trusted third party, is going to give those keys to us. It's going to append the key. It's going to put at the end the name, the duration, and the hash for Joe himself. So we know it's Joe we're dealing with for that trusted third party. The key for Joe, basically. So very, very good. This is called a certificate when all done. So now we have a certificate for Pat's public key and Bob's public key. Now in the real world, we have to pay Joe for his services. It's not free, right? So there's many trusted third parties out there on the internet right now who are paid a fee to maintain certificates for places like Google, any major website, any major communication that you have. They all have keys, and they use certificate authorities, CAs, in order to make that happen. And that's what these trusted third parties are called, certificate authorities. Many of them have their certificates built into operating systems, so we know whether or not to trust them. So their certificates are already located within your operating system so that we can now exchange public keys as long as they are associated with one of these certificate authorities.